March the 12th, and this is Local Government Committee Day, and it may be our last one on this half of the biennium. This is one meeting for the purpose of a hearing on SB 194, and I will say that the hearing we had, the informational hearing we had just 2 days ago, was for House Bill 2282, which is a mirror image of this bill. The Senate and the House both ran this bill, and we heard an information, most of everything we have today, but we have one proponent that's presented as oral, but also as your written testimony is here, that we heard from Mr. Tom Cox of Connected Nation. If you'd like, we can go ahead and take the notes that he has here and then ask questions later, or if you want him to speak, either your choice. I'm going to open the hearing. Yes, we do. Mr. Revisor, if you would go ahead and describe the bill as you did finally 2 days ago.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Senate Bill 194 is the Senate version of House Bill 2282, and so the provisions are largely the same in that they make void and unenforceable covenants on property that is owned by a state educational institution that prohibit the use for other than single-family residence purposes and which contain discriminatory provisions to restrict ownership or tenancy based on race. And so those provisions would be declared against public policy and void and unenforceable when this bill is enacted. I will just point out the two amendments the Senate made. One is to apply that 10-year date range that is in the bill so that the provision voiding these covenants only applies to covenants that were executed during that date range. And so that's the targeted covenants, as you heard from Mr. Cox on Monday. The other change the Senate made was to bump up the effective date. So this would go into effect on Kansas Register, which would be at this point with this session's calendar, probably early April. It would be the publication of the Kansas Register after the governor signs the bill into law. Then this would be effective. So with those two changes, and then the note that the Senate did pass this on a final action vote of 40-0, I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Jason? Representative Pishney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification, Jason. Putting the word only in there, does that create any concerns that maybe something could be coming forward to us about another issue related to this that we haven't anticipated at this point versus leaving it without the word only? I'm not objecting, just clarifying.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my understanding is that the conveyance of land that led to the documents with these covenants was settled during that 10-year date range, and I believe the proponents are satisfied that all documents that could possibly be related to the transaction were executed in that date range. So it is a safe date range for limitation purposes, and it's also my understanding that the intent of the bill was not to address potential covenants in any other land transactions involving any other state institutions that may be hanging out there, that this was really for covenants with respect to this property in this time period.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jason? Thanks, sir. We will move on in our hearing to proponent testimony. As I've stated, if you have any questions for Mr. Cox, anyone who was listening online, you might give just a brief description of your portion of it, and we have the rest of the written detail in a couple of pages. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee. Yes, the same testimony as I gave on the informational hearing. The bill is the same bill with, as the revisor just explained better than I could. The only two changes are publication of the register to have it go into effect instead of statute book, which would be, I think, July typically. Move it up to hopefully would be April. And then Representative Pishney, yes, the add the word only was a suggestion from the revisor on the Senate side, just to clarify, because we had two different sections to say, hey, this section only applies to essentially information for the first, because we were trying to create this as narrow as possible. And when we drafted that, we just left that word out, and there's like, let's just make sure there's no unintended consequences, and that one word solved the problem, which that's a great problem to have, you know. It's when we can do one word to solve a problem in the legislature, that's a huge win in my book. So, but past that, it's identical. It passed the Senate 40-0, and I'm happy to answer any questions the committee has, and I appreciate all the questions on Monday.
Any other questions for Mr. Cox? Not seeing any. Thank you, Tom. Are there any other proponent testimony to be given? Okay, if not, is there any neutral or opponent testimony to be given in this hearing? Not seeing any, we will close the hearing at 7 minutes after we got started. So we will, I would entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that the committee pass Senate Bill 194 favorably out of committee. First of all, we need to suspend, I would recommend we suspend the rules and do emergency final action on this, and that the bill be placed on the consent calendar.
There's been a motion and a second. Was that Slangen-Siepen seconded? And so that will be to suspend the rules and also to place it on the consent. If we suspend the rules, we're going to vote separately. Suspending of the rules is one vote. And are we, if we're okay with suspending the rules, say aye. Okay. And it passes. So if you'll go ahead and remake the motion for passing the bill and any other action you might want.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move, now that we've suspended the rules, I move Senate Bill 194 favorably. The committee consider that and have a placement on the consent calendar.
For discussion, yes. Yes, ma'am. Seconded by minority member. And is there any discussion? This seems like a really lively time for discussion. Anything you want to talk about? Yeah. Okay. We have no discussion, so if you'll move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move.
Okay. All in favor of passage for the consent agenda, say aye. All opposed? Aye. One opposition, that's, oh, okay, delay. All right, very good. And that passes. We only have one item of business to tend to, and that is approval of the minutes for March the 3rd, 5th, and 10th. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for those dates.
Representative Slangen-Siepen and Representative Essex. And all in favor, say aye. Opposed? And it passes. We are done for right now. And if you guys want to get together for a cookout later this summer, but we're done. And excuse me, was that? Yeah, sure. Be glad. Hey, thank you, folks, and thanks for coming to the meeting. And we are dismissed.